Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am building something quite a bit different. I was talking with my little brother the other day about a problem that he had. He's been playing a lot of this board game that he has. It's kind of a turn-based card game called The Binding of Isaac 4 Souls. In this game, it's very similar to how the video game is played. You have monsters that you battle as you work through rooms, getting prizes and things like that. The issue my brother had, initially the conversation went,
Thomas, can I get your opinion on should I buy this piece of plastic to hold my cards?
Then evolved into, I'll build it for you, brother, don't worry, it'll take me a day or two, to this is now the second or third week in the builds of this particular prop, and it has been a lot. So I'm going to go through step by step on how I built this thing. Basically what he needs is a card holder because his double-sleeved cards are like hard to stay in a pile without them falling over. So there needs to be something to hold them. So that is my job, is to make a card holder, but I can't just make a regular base for things to go into. I need to make it custom. So I'm going to make some dioramas to match each of the different card stacks within the game, and also make a discard pile holder, something like that. So today we are making a Binding of Isaac 4 Souls card stack holder for my little brother. It's gonna be a lot, bear with me. Let's get to building. This will be a long one, so please hold on. So I started off by getting my brother to measure his double-sleeved cards to help me figure out the dimensions of this box. There are tons of ways you could tackle this, but I am going to use my Glowforge laser cutter to cut out some plywood boxes for the base. I go over to makercase.com and choose the simple box. This website is free to use and is an easy way to very quickly make a box. I've used them in several other builds in the past. I'll make sure to put a link to it down in the description. Initially, I made it in the dimensions of the card and eventually went back to add about 2/10 of an inch to each side for some wiggle room. Once you are done plotting out your design, you can save it as an SVG and download the file to cut out with lasers. I did end up adding a 1-inch slot to all 4 sides of the tower to allow for cards to be removed, but I did this within the Glowforge program. Before I cut it all out on my plywood, I did a test run in some cardboard first. It's nice to be able to quickly prototype stuff so you don't have to waste a bunch of money on expensive materials to figure out what's wrong with your design. If you don't have a laser cutter, you could 3D print these trays, maybe find Tupperware close to the size and dimensions you need, or you could cut and do this all by hand. I cut out the size of the card that will be in the stack, a little bit thicker than needed, but the other dimensions are relatively close. Now all I have to do is tape the parts together to get a better idea of what these things will look like. If you are interested in making some, I will share my SVG files with you down in the description below, as well as link the website I use to make the boxes. With my preliminary test out of the way, I can move on to using some 1/8 inch plywood. The Glowforge makes quick work of the cutting, something that probably would take me a couple of days to do by hand with a lot more tools. Now it's time for the basic glue up of the towers. I have 4 that are 9 inches tall and 4 that are 5 inches tall. All the other dimensions are the same. With the finger joints, I just have to spread wood glue in the areas that the 2 parts will touch. A trimmed down chip brush makes fast work of the glue up, and painter's tape will be strong enough of a clamping power to hold them all together. Once assembled, I wanted to cover up the fingers just for an aesthetic purpose, so I cut some straight, long pieces to cover the corners. This will make the tower even sturdier and give me a raised surface to add some details with here in a minute. Here are all 8 towers assembled. 4 stacks are to hold the cards and 4 are for discarding. I've never played the card game before, but I did watch a couple of tutorials before I started, as well as a few lengthy conversations with my brother. This game has tons of cards with expansion packs and special releases. It's understandable why he needs them. A single card game can last for hours, and this setup will make it easier for him. So far, my idea is to make my raised corner areas have a wall texture from the video game as a design element. It is a classic dungeon crawler style game and is one of my brother's absolute favorites. The card game is based off of the video game. I use a wood burner for some, then switch to a cutting wheel on my rotary tool, and one set gets hot glue globs to mimic a cobblestone effect. A stack tower and a discard tower get matching walls and floor textures. To add some thickness to the front, I superglue on some 10mm EVA foam to the wood and burn in floor textures that match the wall textures from the game. I also globbed on some hot glue to transition the rest of the floor to the tower. Make sure to wear a respirator and work in a well ventilated area while burning or sanding EVA foam. You don't want to breathe it in. Also be careful with hot glue, as it is like skin eroding napalm when it hits you. Oh, and be careful for blades and super glue and pretty much all making materials. Even if they seem inert, you'll probably find a way to hurt yourself. At least I have. With the bases built, I need to plan out how I'm going to make the details for each little diorama. My brother sent me a 20-page document, yes, 20-page, with pictures and information about some of his favorite stuff within the game. And I dwindled it down to a couple of items for each stack. The 4 stacks are rooms, monsters, loot, and treasure. I'm trying to pick out elements that will fit each theme and incorporate them into a small diorama that is maybe 1.75 inches wide. I draw out the basic structure in pencil, then with a red Sharpie I draw a rough sketch of my layout. Once done, I figure out what materials will work best for each part and move on to the next. My discards all have trash cans with little bits relevant to the themes also, but they will be a little more generic. With the design in my hands, I am now ready to begin piecing these things together. There are a lot of different approaches I could take here, using some found objects, 3D printing bits, or even looking for diorama miniatures, but I really wanted to challenge myself to build most of it by hand, or at least the first 2 weeks of this build. A majority of the details I did in various thicknesses of EVA foam because it is a material I am probably most comfortable with, and more importantly, I have a closet full of this stuff. Keep in mind that the video game is not 3-dimensional, and obviously the card game is flat as well, so some of these shapes I am improvising based off of 1 or 2 reference images. So don't be too judgy or harsh when my proportions are all wonky. It'll hopefully at least look good from the front. My towers get an automotive primer and black spray paint, and my foam bits get Plasti Dip. Now the arduous task of painting 8 towers. I initially tried taping off the areas I wanted to remain black, but eventually figured out that that wasn't really necessary if I was careful. The raised corners and floors will get painted with various layers of acrylic paint, followed by washes and other painting techniques to dirty them up. The inside portions will remain black. To paint all 8 towers, it took me the better part of a day. At this point, I am in week 3 of this build. It's gone a little long, and I can finally start to see a finish line in sight. I'm gonna paint each thing individually, then assemble them after. Forget going cross-eyed trying to curve my bristles on my brush around the corner of an object to get something. I'm not doing it. With all the towers painted, I wanted to add a little bit of texture on those transitioned hot glue areas around the side and back. This will hide my sloppy paintwork in those areas, as well as give a decorative element to some less interesting parts of my design. I got these little starter sampler packs of diorama terrains on Amazon, and I'm going to glue down some faux grass, dirt, sand to each of these bases. Of course, each tower and discard set will get their own kinds. I spread on the glue and sprinkle on the texture. Once done, I spritz it all with a little bit of watered down PVA glue, and bases are done. Now it's time to paint all these tiny figures, just when you thought the painting was done. These random bits are kind of hard to do with my ginormous hands. This beast gets a black acrylic shoved into all the crevices, and the high points wiped away with a paper towel. Then with a teeny tiny brush, I go in and add more highlights, mouth flames, yellow to red eyes, all kinds of extra details. This was another day or so of painting added to the work. I even went as far as to hand paint on the little decals to the chest to match that of the box for the deluxe version of the game. So much details, so little time left. I gotta get this build out. Everything is now painted and ready for assembly. Hooray! I went onto my computer and found random achievements, post-its, and other images from the game, shrunk them down, and printed them onto some thick cardstock. I also pulled a bunch of images of the actual cards from the card game and shrunk them down, both the fronts and the backs. To save myself a little bit of time, though it was part of my delay in the finishing, I found little garbage cans and miniature bottles on Amazon Amazon that could act as embellishments for my discard stacks. Using a mixture of hot glue and super glue, I attach my characters in the general area as my initial sketch and then litter the rest of the structure with all these little detailed bits. I use black and brown shoe polish on the plastic cans to dirty them up, and then with a handheld blowtorch char them up to age them a bit. I tried to make sure that there was some little detail on every side of the tower, so if you were playing it, you have a different view depending on where you're at. Now they're almost done. The last thing I wanted to do is to put a thin sheet of craft foam on the bottoms to cover up the wood and to give a little bit of protection for the table and grip for them to sit on. I also cut and super glued in some foam on the inside of each tower so that when the cards lay down they don't stick to the paint. Now I am through and would like to show you all of them up close so that you can see all the extra little details that went into this. It was a lot of work, but I'm pretty pleased with how they turned out. I've already shown my brother and he was beyond happy with the results. I love when prop making and artwork can serve both an aesthetic and practical purpose, literally for meeting function. Hopefully my younger brother enjoys his belated birthday present and will use this as an addition to his beloved Binding of Isaac game for years to come. I hope you enjoyed this build and got something from it. Breaking down a task into smaller chunks makes it a lot less overwhelming and doable. And in the end, maybe you'll end up with some one-of-a-kind piece that will add to your favorite tabletop game. Thanks for watching. I'll quit talking. finished. I figured it'd be easier to do it this way than try and like juggle all 8 of them. Yes, 8 of them. Separate dioramas standing up on their own, also serving a practical function. It was a load of fun to design and put together, and tons of hours of work went into. So hopefully my little brother and his family enjoy the card playing that will partake using these items and maybe sit up on a shelf and look pretty cool when not being used. Maybe you'll try and make some of these yourselves and impress your friends with the ability to overcomplicate a very simple thing and take up a bunch of time. Yeah. Maybe you'll get some.
Yay!
And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them, much props. Now I guess I got to figure out how to ship them to them. Peace out. If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and want to see more builds in the future, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on my Patreon to help build a bigger, better, more creative community together.